So before we started, you told me that this is a piece of history that we are embarking upon here today.
This is the last broadcast I'm doing from this room because we are in the process of moving. So basically, you can't see off camera, but everything is in boxes and totes. This desk will probably be gone tomorrow.
Wow.
This will be gone tomorrow. This will be in storage. This will be gone. It'll be that is tonight's project to get it all off the walls. So when the movers come, they can take it and put it into storage because we're building a house about no more than a half mile away from here, but we're putting everything into storage so folks can come and stage it and make it look a heck of a lot nicer than it does, even though it doesn't. It looks nice now. It right now is in need of some, I guess, what the realtors call staging.
Yes. Yeah. So if anybody wanders in and it's like, well, and this is where Will Palaszczuk does his radio hits and and his television material, and
it's gonna get painted because we haven't actually painted a very nice color back here, but it's iron ore around the rest of the room. This is kind of what we call an accent wall or whatever, and we had it iron ore. It was meant to give a really nice, almost kind of like the study in Clue was the vibe we wanted.
There you go. Okay. All right. And does this mean that we get to be the first one to go from the new studio space when the house is for the proper bookmarking of the whole thing?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Just checking.
We all have to pray for Atlanta United to play Charlotte FC early in the season when that's able to go.
We'll boogie on that. Since you had a 4-point week, figured we'd talk about both matches and kind of work our way forward to what to possibly anticipate coming up this weekend.
7 if you count the previous weekend.
Yes, and so you got 7 points in like 9 days or 8 days or something like that. Something that United can relate to. 9 points in 9 days themselves. So when you look back at this most recent stretch, what has stuck with you about where things are right now?
3 different games, John. When you think about it, you had a Columbus game where Charlotte started out the aggressor early and, they scored 2 goals in 7 minutes. They did give one back, but then got another one in the second half. You had a Toronto game where you felt like you were in the driver's seat and then not only in the driver's seat, but up a man after being in the driver's seat. And then you concede 2 goals late on a couple of switched off moments defensively, which has unfortunately been the emblematic thing of Charlotte FC season. And then a game on Saturday against DC United that you really didn't feel like you were in. Felt like it was a stalemate through 45 minutes, maybe one that you kind of let them in for the better part of 55 minutes. They score, and ever since once they scored, it lit a fire underneath the behind, a shot in the arm, whatever analogy you want to use.
Sure.
And then the rest of the game, they looked like they were gangbusters. They get 2 goals off set pieces, which has just become our calling card now since we hired Charlotte FC's new set piece coach, Carl Hooper from Aston Villa. He gets 2 goals in span of 64th and 66th minute. And then Pep Biel does his thing in the 77th minute. You get 3 goals in 13 minutes. And all of a sudden, what looked like a certain disaster turns into a victory. And maybe, I don't want to say the result flattered Charlotte, but I'll just take it right out of Dean Smith's mouth. They have played better in games like they've played better than games than they played this past Saturday and not won. So maybe they felt like they were owed one from those who control that up above, but it is what it is. So I will say that I don't know if there's anything you could call a common thread between all 3 of them, but the thing is they're getting results and they've played very, very well, since the World Cup break. The only times they've dropped points are against Atlanta, in that game against Toronto, and then the 3 against Chicago. And that's the only time that they've dropped points from winning position all season. So while many would look at it and say, oh, this is a trend, they prefer to look at it as an outlier.
Does anything surprise you where Pep Biel is concerned anymore?
I'm surprised when he doesn't do it, put it that way. I'm surprised when he doesn't come through because it seems like he has become Mr. Reliable and it's become a talking point around the Charlotte FC lexicon on where he sits in the pantheon. And again, it's a short pantheon because it's only 5 years or 4.5 years of where he sits in the hierarchy. And right now, It's him and Kalina, as far as I'm concerned. And I know that a lot of Charlotte FC fans will look at Karol Swiderski very fondly. And not that I don't, but I think that from a vibe standpoint, you always kind of left yourself wanting more with Karol.
Yeah.
And I think, too, there was always this air of he was very dependent on a lot of things happening for him, whether it was service, whether it was calls, whether it was the right person to play off of him, whether it was a central attacking midfielder or a winger. Pep Biel doesn't need much. He can handle it with the service. He can get into dangerous areas. And even in games where you don't think that he's occupying dangerous enough space, he gets on the bike and runs with Liel Abada and puts a goal in the back of the net. And it basically just comes into the statement that I'll make is that I think he's the best outfield player we've ever had. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not close between him and Karol Swiderski, but I think he's one that Charlotte FC identified. And you have to think back to this, and I've been reminded of this a couple of times by some fans. He wasn't the first choice when Charlotte FC was in that window. The first choice was Calvin Stengs, and there was a big celebrated failure of a physical involving Stengs, and as a result of that, there was a lot of hand wringing, and people were angry about it. And I think there's a lot of people who back then were like, oh, Pep Biel kind of comes out as an also-ran. If you look at Zoran Cornetta's board, Pep Biel was high up on it. So it wasn't like they completely, went off the board to try and get Pep Biel at the end. He's somebody that they looked at. They always have contingencies upon contingencies, and they very much like Pep Biel. He had the great season at Copenhagen in 22-23 that I think was kind of what they wanted to have him return to the form of. And I've asked him about that multiple times, and he says he thinks that this run of form for him is better because he's a much more mature player. He, I think, appreciates it a heck of a lot more because it had gone awry for him, and like many people who enter this league, a lot of times it goes awry for them, and they have to put it back more into place. And now he is reaping the benefits of it because he's got players around him, he's got finishers around him, and most importantly, he's got the confidence to be able to really do anything on the football field he wants to.
We always talk about positional gravity when it comes to those focal points for any club that we're discussing. And when defenses try to lock down on the number one, then that creates opportunities for those around.
Sure.
Who this season has benefited the most from the positional gravity that Pep Biel attracts when Charlotte FC goes on the field?
I'll answer that two ways. It's definitely helped our wingers. Abada has, I think, looked a different player since the World Cup break, and he has been able to get in a lot more space because of him, because of Pep Biel and the way that the people flock towards him. I think it will help Alan St. Maximin a great deal. It certainly helped Adolfo Oloco with the goal that he scored in Toronto. But the real help is that I think the back line has benefited a lot because they now have more goals with their back line than Dean Smith's entire tenure combined. I mean, you had two fullbacks score. That's never happened in Charlotte FC's history. You had two fullbacks score. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, he used to say this about Nathan Byrne whenever Nate scored in practice. We would end the practice if Nathan Byrne never scored a goal. It wasn't Byrne in this case. It was Will Cleary and David Schnegg.
Right.
And Schneggy scored a couple of goals. And you want to talk about shrewd signings? Like, they got him off waivers. And I talked to people, connected with DC United, and I asked them, I said, am I missing something here? Is something wrong with Schneggy? And they said, no. I don't know what we're doing. And you could tell he took it personally. And he told me, he said, my time in DC was not much to write home about. I'm hoping for a new fresh start in Charlotte, and he is very much loved his time here, and they've needed him because of the injury to Harry Toffolo. You've got Henry Kessler who's gotten into the act. Morrison has gotten into the act too as well, and a lot of those come off of services from Pep Biel. So again, I feel like maybe because of the fact that you have to account for his service, that helps him. But the one unreached part of this that I hope it starts to help, John, is the two center forwards. And I'm sure you'll ask about both of them, but I think it's one of those things where when you have two young guys like that and you want them to push each other, you just hope that you get the results that go along with them. But something that Dean Smith said to me this morning, he said, look, when you're having two developmental center forwards, you have to get goals from other areas, and they're getting it from the back line, they're getting it from the wings, and most importantly, they're getting it from Pep Biel, because even when he has Pellies around him, he doesn't need a whole lot of room.
And I will bookmark the Alan St. Maximin discussion so we can talk about the young center forwards. How are they, in your estimation, developing? Because, I mean, you look at Idan Toklomati, when he first showed up, a lot of folks would sit there and say that he wasn't even a household name in his own household. And
Right.
and now he's developing, and he's becoming one of the danger men that you see for Charlotte. So how are the youngins up top? How are they progressing?
I would say that there's still some more movement to be done, and it's not that Idan has had a poor season. He's got 6 goals, 3 assists, but it is one of those things where I think you need to see more moments from him in games, and I think you need to see him be more threatening. I think that the biggest problem with him is that he needs to know the service is coming, and sometimes he'll drop back further, almost kind of like Patrick Adjumon used to do this too. And Dean said, you know what, we need you to stay high. The thing that's different between the two of them is that Idan is willing to do the thankless running. They needed to get Patrick to do that and develop that as he kind of went along. It's just a matter of he likes to veer outside the boxes, and Dean wants to keep him like, hey, I need you to stay within the confines of the 18-yard box, left side and right side, because if you get in the corner, that's part of the areas where both wingers and where Pep Biel sometimes likes to play at as well. And we don't need you overloading that area. We need you in the center, waiting for a cross, waiting for a header, waiting for some dirty goal right around the middle of the park. The thing about Archie Goodwin, his counterpart, is that Archie just doesn't have. Archie has one speed.
Mm-hmm.
He calls, he is Australian, and he calls himself a Tasmanian devil. So he is all over the place, and I think a lot of it's good, but a lot of it also needs to be harnessed properly. And I think that's one of those things that they're still trying to figure out with him, is that, okay, we got a player who's willing to, who doesn't feel like he has an empty. I would call him, from an energy standpoint, the Brant Bronico of center forwards.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't seem to have a tank that ever hits empty. It's just a matter of how do you go about harnessing that? How do you go about making that happen? I still would like to see Archie maybe more from the start than Idan, because I think in the times that they've done that, Idan has looked more threatening off the bench against tired benches, whereas when Idan comes in from the start, I think part of the reason they've been using Idan from the start is they really want to try to get him going. It just hasn't really gotten going for him. So it's one of those things where, and the goal that he scored against Toronto was emblematic of a lot of the goals he has scored. It's just right place, right time. He kind of cleaned up the mess from his Israeli counterpart, Liel Abada, when he was basically stymied to the net by Sean Johnson. I need him to be, more of that threat around the net, and more, being able to create his own a little bit too as well. Just because I think that'll come, but I think they're both kind of suffering from, hey, the spotlight's on me. I think the number 9 shirt too is wearing a little bit on Idan. He's carrying it with a little bit extra weight. But I don't think either is having a bad season by any means. I think that fans and I think the coaching staff would want to see more out of him.
Well, and to your point, so if you start Idan Toklomati, then you get the artistry, the imagination, the ideas of working with others, where I just have this vision of Archie. And if Archie, say, comes in for the final 30, you have the Tasmanian devil sitting there going, blah, 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 for 30 minutes. Yeah. And instead of having to deal with that energy for 30, you wonder if you start Archie and you have that kind of energy off the top, then you wonder if it crashes.
That's my hypothesis.
Yeah.
I think Archie can wear out the fences more during his hour, so that when you have Idan to come on, it has you beleaguered in the back on the opposition side, and you don't know how to deal with it when it comes to Idan. And I think his energy and his presence is more deft than I think Archie's would be. Not that it's ineffective, but I think it's more crafty in nature. Maybe that's a better adjective to describe it. It's more crafty than it is energetic, like Archie is.
Yeah, it just seems like it's two different speeds, but I think you want that with that particular position, so you have that change of pace and you can dictate it towards your opponent.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You don't want two guys who are the same.
Right.
And I think, there are some people who get in the habit of, some teams who get in the habit with their build where it's like, oh, we have to have two target men because we always have to have a target man, or we need to have, two poachers, or we need to have two guys with technical skill. I think it's good to have that change of pace because it also, as Dean Smith has said a lot of times with his midfield, he likes crafting his midfield in order to handle different oppositions. And so you see one guy in a game, he feels like he's good for that game, but maybe not good for another opponent. And so not that they necessarily don't want to be the term dictators, but they feel like they can do that with different bodies.
Allen St. Maximin had the most dribbles against DC United with 4, and this is courtesy of our friends at FOTMOB. Played 83 minutes. The XG and the XA, low number under a 0.5. 76% passing, 25 of 33. Had 2 chances created, a big chance created, 1 shot off target. 51 touches, 4 touches in the opposition 18, 4 successful dribbles out of 6, 5 passes into the final third. He's hitting a lot of different boxes here. He got the 1 cross. He's got the 2 long balls, offsides once, and he had 1 pick and 1 recovery, and then he won 7 out of 12 duels on the evening and fouled 3 times. What did you think about Allen St. Maximin being out there on the left?
If this is him getting up to speed, I don't envy MLS defenders when they go up against them. I don't envy the right backs. I don't envy the center backs because that man knows what to do with the ball. He puts it on a string. It's a yo-yo with him. And I think the other part of it, too, is that he's still getting his sea legs in this league. He's still getting his sea legs, particularly when it comes to playing on turf. And I think he's also trying to figure out what kind of leeway he can have in terms of whether it's calls, whether it's his teammates, and trying to figure out, okay, who wants the ball where. And something that I found very interesting is that Dean Smith said, they did a bunch of video work on Allen St. Maximin to say, hey, this is where he likes to deliver the ball. These are the spots where we want you to be at when he delivers the ball, because as much as he's going to adapt his game to us, we need to adapt where we are to where he's going to be, because he's going to be so very impactful in that when he does shake 1 or 2 or 3 men and gets the ball away, you got to know where the ball is going to be. And I think that's something that they're trying to figure out on the fly. It's again a product of the window being where it is, that they were only able to get his visa in here after a couple of weeks after he was signed officially, and there was obviously a little bit of a delay and lag in that. So I think there are a lot of people who kind of wondered, hey, could this process have maybe been sped up or started sooner? But the fact that you got 82 minutes out of him, I know that Dean said he was complaining about some dead leg. It came off, and it looked scarier than it really was. But it's basically he's just dealing with a contusion. There's nothing structurally damaged or anything like that. So he should be good to go this weekend. It's fascinating to see the difference between him and Wilfred Zaha from a mentality standpoint, and I think also just from the way that they carry themselves. I think also, one of the things that Maxi said to us in one of his first press conferences, he said, if I get 3 defenders around me, I know that I got to pass the ball. I'm not going to try to take. I'm not going to try to take all of them on. It's not something. And I don't know if he was trying to throw some stick toward Wilfred Zaha's way, but I think he saw. I think he's savvy enough to know that maybe there was some distaste in the mouth from a lot of Charlotte FC fans from the way Wilf left and departed the club. Yeah. Probably one of the more complicated legacies of a player that we've had here, because I think you saw the quality early on. You saw the magic he could do. Maybe it's in a diminished form than what he was in his prime in Crystal Palace, but Maxi certainly, he's 5 years younger, so he brings a little bit more dynamism, and hopefully the biggest thing when it comes to Maxi is will the counting stats follow the great dribbling and skills? Because we talk a lot about dribbles, we can talk a lot about carries, we can talk a lot about take-ons. People are only going to care about goals and assists, and if those follow, then he's going to become a great player here in this league and with this club.
And the W's that you would hope that if you're a Charlotte FC fan that would be attached to all of those G's and A's that would be working.
Very soon.
What kind of a matchup are you expecting this weekend, sir?
Well, Atlanta's obviously feeling like they've found something with a 3-game win streak, and I know that there's all the rumors about Brielle Mbolo coming in, and the U22 midfielder as well, who are trying to infuse that squad with a lot more moxie, and I think Charlotte, from their perspective, kind of feels like, man, in 2 results, they didn't give the best of themselves, particularly in the Open Cup contest where they were heavily rotated and didn't feel like they put forth their best effort and best output of performance. And then on a home game where, in their mind, they feel like they gave away 2 points, and it's a situation where it's been emblematic of their season. There have been problems with finishing out games and finishing out moments and finishing out situations where you'd hope that they could get more out of those games. And they're going to be coming in highly motivated. They have obviously liked playing in Atlanta, given the way that the results have gone the last 3 years. And I think there's a big sizable contingent of Charlotte FC fans, as always, that will be headed down for it. But they're taking nothing for granted. They know the gravity of how important the match is, and they also know that how condensed this East is. I think when you think about third all the way on down, up until you get till Philadelphia, all those teams are jockeying for position and feel like they have a right to the playoffs, and Atlanta's right among it. And so I don't think this is one that we say it in the other football all the time, throw out the records. They don't mean anything. And it certainly happens that way when these 2 teams square off.
Yep, and it's going to be fun in the East. Obviously, Atlanta United is going to have to try and figure out what they're going to do at the back with Elias Baez getting a yellow, so he'll be out on accumulation. And what the right-hand side of the attack for Charlotte may be going up against the left-hand side in the decision that is made for Atlanta United. If you would please, sir, cut the promo for any and all of everything going on, where we can be kept up to date 30 hours a day, 8 days a week, 390 days a year.
Well, we'll be obviously on the air at 7 o'clock for our pregame show on Saturday, 7:30 kick time, 7:40 kick time on Apple, and obviously on our flagship station, Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ, and our 7/8 station network across both Carolinas and Virginia. Looking forward to being down and seeing all the fans, hopefully from the Black and Blue Nation, getting down there for that game. And obviously on Twitter, you can find me at Willie P. Style. Looking forward to Anna and I both get an opportunity to see what is one of our favorite fixtures of the year, just based on how much enmity seems to be between these 2 clubs.
Wow, he broke out enmity. As always, my friend, it's great to see you, and I am humbled and honored that we were the last to record or do anything out of Willie P version 1.0, and I can't wait to see 2.0. And obviously, in all seriousness, it's a big day for the family, considering that you're having a new casa being built. And that's always something where you get to invest a lot of your emotion and all of your space in there.
Take a good look, John. Take a good look, John. You won't see it anymore.
Can't wait to see what 2.0 is. We'll see you this weekend, my friend. Great to see you.
Thank you, John.